Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Jim Stroud podcast. Today we have a very special guest. Special guest, tell us, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, hello, Jim. I'm Allister Frost, and I help people discover something I call a future ready mindset because I believe that a lot of people, if they don't buck up their ideas, are going to be obsolete in the workplace very soon.
Nice, nice. Okay. Um, Let me start off this interview with this question that's sort of been gnawing the back of my mind. The comfort zone. Some people say the comfort zone is good because it's comfortable. Others say
Mhm.
it's a career killer.
Mm.
What's your take on it?
I think the comfort zone is one of the greatest things that we need to recognize and understand, because it's that I think will hold us back more than anything. So the comfort zone, I mean, it's we've all got one, right? So it's just doing anything in a familiar way. It's a kind of psychological safe place where we feel at ease because we're not being challenged. We're familiar with the territory. We've kind of done it before. We know what we're doing. And I often ask audiences actually, how much time do you think you spend in an average week in your comfort zone? And the honest answer is surprisingly high for a lot of people, as it should be. I mean, if there was no comfort zone, life would be terrible. You wouldn't be able to cope. You want some familiarity, but when it's sort of creeping up there, it's sort of like 70, 80, 100%, some people say, well, that's a kind of scary place because, and this is the big problem,
Hmm.
all the time you're in your comfort zone doing things the way you know they work for you, everything, and I mean literally everything outside of your comfort zone is changing. And you're possibly not paying attention to that because you're busy doing it the way you've always done it. So I think it's one of the greatest challenges for us all to come to terms with that comfort zone. It used to be the norm and you worked hard and you built it and you got it and that was like success. Actually, no, it's a really dangerous place to be when the world is moving so quickly.
Hmm. You said something that also piqued my curiosity. Um, One expression that we say here in the States is that if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
Mm.
But I think you have an alternative view where
Mm.
if it works today, it's already obsolete. Could you explain that a bit more?
Yeah, I kind of grew up. I think a lot of people did on this notion of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's just an efficiency. It makes
Right.
sense. If something's working, don't work, fix that, fix the thing that's broken. Um, the problem is the minute you settle to that mindset, you can kind of let things trickle along as they are. And when I joined Microsoft, I started off at a sort of traditional manufacturing business, very well established, Kimberly Clark, brilliant company, incredibly efficient, but very slow moving, if we're honest, like many manufacturing companies are, like a giant container ship. Changing direction was very rare. And so yes, it was very much a case of run the machines, get efficient, reduce costs, maximize profit. That's smart business, right? And so it's
Yeah.
if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But when I got to Microsoft, which was one hell of a career move, to be honest, from traditional business to the white heat of the tech sector, Bill Gates at the time was going around telling us that the world is speeding up and we need to be paying attention. We need to be reinventing ourselves. And he borrowed a line from Marshall McLuhan, which is what you said, which is today, if something works, it's obsolete. And that
Hmm.
really shook me to the core when I first heard that because I'd grown up on the sort of like, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And now he was saying everything's out of date because the world moves so quickly. Someone somewhere has already figured out a way to do it better. We just haven't got there. They've got there before us. Now, so then at first I thought it's a really depressing thought, isn't it? It's like, what? So all this knowledge, all this experience, all the stuff I learned at school is worthless. Oh my God, this is terrible. But actually, if you embrace that mindset and you look at your business and your life that way, it's incredibly empowering because it gives you absolute permission to improve anything, right? Everything can be improved. Your only challenge is where do you start? And
Yeah.
actually, I think that's a really good way to look at any business, whether you're a small business, whether you're in a giant corporation. Look at it and say, this can all be done better. Let's be honest. What's the number one thing we should start working on today? And then just keep going.
When I hear that, it makes me wonder, is career stability a myth? Is business a myth? I mean, is there such a thing as stability in all this change that's going on these days?
Well, there's less and less. The disruptors are faster and more disruptive. So the world is changing, but the smart players, the key thing to remember is that your experience and knowledge, your scale, your abilities to specialize in a certain area, they don't go away. They're still valuable, but you've got to keep them sharp. You've got to keep moving with the times, because you can get rusty really, really quickly if you
Sure,
just take your
sure.
eye off the ball. And there are so many sectors. Obviously, tech felt it first because it literally just disrupted and ripped up everything that it touched. But there are so many sectors that are kind of only just coming around to this because they're relatively stable. There may be legislation or some sort of controls that are around that market that mean it moves a bit slower. We've seen it so many times. It can be your safe place where it all works and it's going great can disappear overnight with an innovator from another country, another sector, or a programmer who just figures out a totally different way of solving the problem that your customer has. So yeah, there's not the same stability as we used to have, and I think that's the worrying thing, is that there are so many of us with a few years under our belt, a bit of experience, we're good at what we do, and unless we keep having the desire to learn at the same pace as we had when we were very early in our careers, we're going to be the ones that are first out, I believe. We're the ones facing obsolescence far earlier
Yeah,
than, I don't know, our parents, our grandparents, any previous generation, because they had relative stability. We do not have that anymore.
yeah. I I think this may be the last generation we see of mm, large corporations, from the extent of large being thousands of people working there. With the help of AI tools, I can easily see companies that are multinational uh, maybe employ 100 people as opposed to 10,000 people now. Do you think that's far-fetched, or do you think it's pretty much true in another decade or so?
Honestly, I don't know, and I don't think anybody knows exactly how it works. Certainly, the giant organizations where you had to have so many people just to get the work done, that is under threat because AI
Yeah.
can replace some of that workload. One of the great things that I try to reassure people with when they're concerned about AI is that, yes, it will do repetitive, simple tasks very well. We all know that, but it cannot do it with a human eye, a human mind. And there are certain things that you can do. And in my book, which is called Ready Already, I talk about three superpowers that humans have that the technology will never have, because it's a biological process. It's a way of thinking that AI cannot do. And I think those are the areas that we should perhaps double down on as human beings if we want to remain valuable in the workplace and we want to add value, so that we're layering over the top of the AI some humanity that differentiates us from everybody else. Because if we're all just using the AI to churn out the answers, I think that's probably a zero sum game. I don't know, I don't know quite how that pans out. I don't know if that's what customers want at the end of the
Right.
day. We want experiences, we want things that we feel, that we understand. And AI really isn't designed to do that as well as the brilliant social creatures that are us human beings.
I like that. If everybody's doing the same thing, what's your unique value proposition, right? I really appreciate that.
It has to be an AI. I've flipped it in my mind. We all know AI stands for artificial intelligence.
Mm,
I think of it as augmented intelligence, as simple as that. It's augmented because it augments something, me. Without
mm.
me feeding the AI, it's pattern matching at scale. It's brilliant, it's wonderful, it's really clever, but it's just churning out patterns from previous experiences, anything that it already knows. What I can do is use that AI to help me take away some of the burden of the job, but then it's just augmenting my intelligence. It's not replacing it. And I have to then look at the answers that AI gives me, do something smart with them, not just take them, copy paste, and say that's job done. But I see so many people doing that. They put the question in, AI writes the email, they press send, and guess what? That's lovely today. But what about in a few months' time when the world realizes that actually all you're doing is pressing the send button? We don't need to pay you to press the send button. You know, you need to be here for a higher reason. So that's why it comes down to humanity plus AI.
Nice, nice. You mentioned a few moments ago, ready aware. Um, Ready already. I'm sorry.
Yes,
You're
ready
ready
already.
already
Yes.
process. Could you explain that to the layman who's
Yeah,
hearing it
yeah.
for the
Look,
first time?
I'm a first-time author, so I'm getting good at holding up my books. That's what you have to do. So it's called
It's a
Ready
beautiful
Already.
book too, by the
It's a
way.
beautiful book. It's a short book, and by design, because frankly, I want people to create a better future for themselves. I don't want them spending their life reading my book. So it's a short book that's very pragmatic and it's punchy, and it's really built around the model I came up with. Is called the Ready Already growth cycle, and I've got it here on the desk because it's always here. And the point of this model is, is I'm not going to go through the full detail of this because that's what the book's for, but it's basically something that anyone can use in any job. It's the simplest, most battle proven model I have for looking at your job and saying, okay, what could I improve? How could I make it better? How could I change things? And it gives you a process for doing that, for identifying where your focus should be, for validating that you're focused in the right place. And then it goes into those three superpowers. So where are they? They're down here. Open, surprise, and tell, as I call them on my model. Some people call this the Frost model because if you pay attention, the letters follow, react, open, surprise, and tell. Yeah, the initials spell my surname. That's mostly so I can remember the order correctly, but also so it helps other people. And open, surprise, and tell, that's where the magic is. So the whole model is really simple. Whatever your business, whatever you're doing, you can look at it and say, okay, I need to have some fresh ideas. How do I do that? Well, that's a terrifying prospect for most people. And you'll end up going back to your comfort zone and kind of coming up with the same ideas as last time or your competitors or whatever else. So what this model does is it gives you a framework for doing it differently. See if you get
Keeps you
something
from
better
being,
out of the result.
yeah, it keeps you from being stuck in a rut, I guess. That's the
Yeah,
right way to say that.
and it's really terrifying. I call it a future ready mindset, which is we've had growth mindset for nearly 20 years now. But growth mindset, this notion that we can learn and grow and develop and so on, it's wonderful. But the reality is it's not true because if it doesn't work, because if it did, we'd all be superheroes by now. We'd all be we'd have brains the size of Britain or wouldn't. It doesn't work because people have a comfort zone. People are busy. People haven't got time to keep learning. But the future ready mindset gives you an extra layer on top of that, and it gives you the reason why you need to pursue your growth mindset. It gives you a reason to do it, which is your personal mission. That's kind of the fuel that keeps you going, keeps you wanting to keep up, keep up, keep up. Because we didn't have to do that in the past, but now we all have to do it, and you've got to find that energy from somewhere. So I try to give people that through the personal mission that I describe, and then I make it fun with the three superpowers that you can just apply and see what you come up with, and it will be totally different to anything you've thought of before. That's the point.
Nice, nice. Any real life examples, any case studies you can share with us? Someone who's used your Frost
I've
methodology for a breakthrough?
I've worked with so many organizations over the years, and the Frost model in its current iteration, it hasn't actually existed for that long because it's taken me so long to sort of distill everything that I learned and figure out what's the essence of what works for me when I was running teams at Microsoft to when I'm consulting with organizations. And I didn't want a model that was sort of 10 steps. It was too complicated. I didn't want any fluff and noise in it. So I stripped everything out and got it really, really simple. And so, yeah, I've worked with a bank, a big bank recently, and worked with their developer teams because they were sort of struggling to keep up with fintech. There were all these amazing new banks opening up and incredible technologies. And a traditional bank is kind of set in its ways, and they were
Yeah.
slow, and they'd update the app maybe once a year, and and it was really slow and cautious. And what they realized is that they could have ideas, that there were so many things that were so obvious that they could improve very, very quickly. And they didn't need to turn it into a big change management program. They could just do stuff. So they used the process to look at the business with more curiosity, which is one of the superpowers, to be more bold with their imagination, to dream the idea that everybody responds, well, the bank wouldn't do that. We wouldn't do that sort of thing. Well, suspend all of that for a moment. Let's have some big ideas. Let's see how bold it could be. And then really the final superpower is about communication and getting people to work together to make their crazy ideas realistic, but also not to kill the ideas, because we're really good at that. We're really good at saying, no, that won't work. And, so
Yeah.
there's some advice in the book about how do you get your colleagues to be additive and supportive when they hear your ideas, not to shoot them down in flames, which is what happened a lot of the time in my career.
Yeah, yeah. When as soon as you said change management, I could just reflect on so many people pushing back on legacy processes for something new,
It's the
different.
default, and we're really good. People who work in professional capacity, we spend our life solving problems. A problem comes up, we fix it. We fix it. That we do it all the time. So when somebody comes up with an idea that's a bit out there, we're really good at solving that problem, making it go away by saying, "Oh no, we won't get the budget for that," or "We tried that before," or whatever it is. And
It,
I believe that every employee can have ideas. And if every employee gets a little bit of encouragement, the transformations you can make in any organization are extraordinary.
do you think that's a generational thing? Like the older you are, the more you're set in your ways, so you are pushing back against new ideas, whereas the younger generation is all about innovation. That's probably a stereotype, but do you think it's true?
Yeah, it's real. I try to avoid these stereotypes because it isn't
Mm,
linear like that. It isn't. But inescapably, there is a generational thing. I'm in my mid 50s now, so I've seen the different stages of the career. And yeah, I recognise the challenges of being an older worker and having less plasticity in the brain and less ability to sort of keep up and less energy as well. It comes with age. But also I've got more experience. And I've seen things, I've seen what works, I've got the t-shirt, I've got the battle wounds, I've been there. So it is a natural thing when you've been around the block a few times to, want to shortcut the mistakes and not, if somebody's got an idea and you think that won't work, you just tell them that won't work, and not in those words. So there is a bit of that.
right.
There is a bit of that. But and there is a naivety that
Mm,
comes with not having experience, which is a really powerful thing. And I think rediscovering that can be very helpful for a lot of people.
for sure, for sure. I totally agree with that. And I think that's one of the biggest dangers of companies eliminating entry level work for AI in some cases, because you are cutting off your supply chain of leaders, of future leaders.
Mm.
And when someone is totally naive to how things are done, they ask all these questions, and it just makes people think, well, they make people see things different ways, which can spark innovation that way. So
Yeah, and
I
we had a
totally
similar
get that.
problem during the COVID years when everyone had to
Yeah,
work from home, and we had a whole community of people who came into the workforce and didn't have the same level of social interactions, and they've missed out on a lot of that experience that you gather through that. So it's one of those things. It is a worry because it does mean that if you don't have people who've put in the hard work early in their career, which because they've been replaced by AI, what do you
sure.
have in the workforce in a few years' time? And that's not a good place. So whenever I hear of any organization that's looking to get rid of entry level jobs and things like that, that's an alarm that I will sound for them, and I hope everyone will too. You need your future talent pool. We need people who have had experience, who have had to do the drudgery sometimes, do the jobs that we all had to do, because that's how you get good at stuff. That's how you learn the life skills that you need.
Exactly, exactly. And I think you hit on a point where a lot of people are very anxious about future-proofing themselves in this age of AI, especially. Give those people maybe a tip, something they can do 10 minutes a day to help future-proof themselves.
Well, first thing I will say to you, Jim, there's no such thing as future proofing. Future proofing
Okay.
is a lie that was taught to
Mm.
us by the technology industry, and I am in part am responsible for some of this when I was at Microsoft. We said, "Oh, it's future proof." 10 years ago, I had a laptop that was future proofed. Not still using it. I can assure you of that. You cannot
Mm.
future-proof anything, and it's a language. And I'm being a bit sort of precious about the words, but if somebody says, "Oh, we're going to future-proof something," the problem with that is it's kind of finite. We've done the job. That we can now forget that we've future-proofed it. We can move on. Now, I appreciate the future-proof has a more colourful definition than that, but if ever anyone says, this is a future-proof solution, I ask them, what is this future that you're proofing against? And they won't be able to answer because they
Ooh.
don't know any more than I do. Right? The
Ooh.
future is not known. So that's why I always say future ready. You can ready yourself for the future, but only for the things that are immediately in front of you. And so the skill that I try to get people to have is to think about, focus first on the inevitable changes and challenges that are in your near future. And we've all got them. I mean, AI is a classic. We've already talked about AI, haven't we?
Mm.
But for many of us, we can see AI. We can see it's doing different jobs. We can see it's getting better at its tasks that it's given. And we may or may not have embraced that and made sense of it and figured out what it means for our job. But it is an inevitable challenge of the future for most people. So that's something that you should put on your list. But there are many others. There may be legislative things. There may be societal changes. There may be competitive changes. It's different for everyone. But if we're honest, if we actually sit down with a notepad and pen, old school, and just write down honestly, what are the inescapable things that are likely to affect me in the years ahead, in the next 2-3 years, you don't have to go further than that. Most of us could write quite a lot on that list and then start there. What of those is the greatest threat or the thing that you could do something about and start working on it? And that's where the ready growth cycle comes in. You pick that thing, say, right, I'm gonna finally figure out how to use AI to, I don't know, reduce the amount of time it takes to do the payroll process in the company, or to, to improve the way we do negotiations of contracts, whatever it is. Just, use take that thing and fix it. So nice. Focus on the inevitabilities, because those are going to happen. And often we spend our lives sort of kind of hoping they won't, but they do again and again and again. And you'd be surprised how easy it is to predict some of the stuff that's going to happen to your industry in the next 2-3 years if you just stop and think about it.
For sure, for sure. This has been fascinating. I think we could go on forever talking about this stuff. But for those listening who want to reach out to you for more information, and especially to learn more about your book and the things that you're discussing there, how can they find you online?
Oh, you can find me online. Well, you'll find me out in the world. I'm a keynote speaker, so I talk at conferences and events. So that's where I spend most of my time, spreading this future-ready mindset message to all kinds of industries. But you'll find me online at readyalready.me, M-E. And that will get you straight into a page where you can read about what the Ready Already cycle is, and you can get in touch with me. It's always lovely to hear from people.
Very cool. Allister Frost, thank you so much for your time. You are appreciated.
And so are you. Thanks, Jim.
Well, my time is up. I thank you for yours. I'll see you again real soon right here with a brand new episode of the Jim Stroud Podcast. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to reach out to me. I can be reached by email at jimstroud@jimstroud.com. And one last favor, if I may ask, please rate this podcast. 5 stars is preferred, but please comment with your honest opinion. I really appreciate that. All right? Okay, until next time, bye-bye.
So there is a lot of talk about AI and technology, and everybody's talking about that. And one of the recurring themes that I hear when people talk about AI is that it'll free you up to do more important tasks or more human tasks, right? But I don't hear a lot of people saying so much what those human tasks are or those human skills are that you have more time for, because I would think that if AI is doing so much and we're doing so much, then our skills that we do will become more valuable. All that to say, what are some things that the average job seeker can do to make themselves more valuable? I'm thinking things like improving your critical thinking, storytelling, perhaps communication. What are some skills you think that across the board human beings need to know to make themselves more valuable in the workplace?
It's a really good point you made, because it is true. Yeah, we're going to free up our time, and we're not. In truth, what I see with my clients is people who are using AI, copy pasting the answer, and then just getting back onto the next email to deal with. And you know what? If you're smart and you're using the tools well, they will free you up from some of the drudgery, not all. But if you're smart, then it should be freeing up your time. And then what would you use that time for? Higher order thinking, right? So use that time to daydream more, to think more, to be more creative, to question the way the organization is, to look around. And I always start with the first superpower in my model, which is curiosity, naive curiosity. the best thing you can do is to look at the world that you operate in. You look at your work, walk into that office or that factory or whatever it is the next day as if you'd never been there before, like it was your first day at work, and look at it and ask all the questions that you'd have to ask to make sense of it. And ask, why is there a sign up there? Why is that machine over there? Why are there no toilets on this floor? Naive questions, like a child would, like a 5-year-old. Because the minute you start asking those questions, you'll open your mind to fresh possibilities, and you'll realize, oh, things don't have to be the way they are. They could be different, because you've seen what is in front of your eyes. And that's the start. That curiosity will then allow you to use your time that you're gathering from all this AI to be more creative with the solutions you come up with, and to introduce a meaningful change, a positive change to your work.
I think you've uncovered a new advantage to bring your child to work day.
Seriously, the kids ask why all the time because they want to feel safe and make sense of the world. But adults, we stop asking why. Just ask why. It is such an empowering thing to do. Why? And I'll give you the one that I asked at Microsoft that still makes me smile to this day. I said one day, why is the Monday meeting always on a Monday? And everybody looked at me like I'd gone mad, like I needed to increase my medication. I said, no, seriously, why is it on a Monday? And then people sort of said, well, I suppose it's the start of the week. Various theories came up. And it actually turned out it'd always been on a Monday because the guy 2 generations ago set it up on a Monday, and we just kept doing it. Now, that doesn't mean the Monday meeting is wrong, of course, but it does open up space in everybody's mind to, oh, maybe we don't have a meeting on a Monday. Maybe we only do it on a Friday, or maybe we do it on Christmas Day because I've got a day off. That would be nice. I don't have to go to the meeting. Whatever, suddenly there are new possibilities, and that's how you move a business forward.
Very nice. Very nice. All right, I'm going to cut it there. See, we got 4 minutes left. I'm going to throw this out to you just because it might make a good antidote for future interviews for you. I've read how different leaders push back against having meetings. Like if it could be an email, don't meet, right? I've seen some leaders where they'll have people do push-ups. Like just hold yourself up in the air, explain your point. You come down when your point is explained or whatever, right? One thing I used to do in a previous life is I experimented with this. I would call a meeting, but I would have like a timer on the desk. Stretch the timer to 5 minutes to 10 minutes. I say, okay, what is the most important thing? We got 10 minutes. Go.
Yeah. Nice.
Okay. Do that. But I think the one that the one way I like to meet the most, that was I think the most beneficial, was just go for a walk. Because as you're walking and talking, I don't know what it is about walking, but it just frees up my mind. I'm able to talk and expound on things.
You know what? The medium is the message, right? The way you communicate, the way you have the meeting has a huge bearing on the results of the meeting. And far too often we just have the meeting in the boring conference room down the corridor, the grey room with no air in it that we always go in. And actually, you know what? If you're having a meeting about time management, have it under the big clock at the railway station and talk about what time is. Talk about what it means to be on time. Talk about how trains run on time. Talk about something. Suddenly everyone will be engaged. Meetings are a huge drain of time because they're not run well. If you're running a meeting, no one says you have to do it in the conference room. Be creative.